It's time for another 5-minute murder. Hopefully you guys have had an incredible week. I will be leaving here in just a few to head to Evansville, Indiana for Evansville RaptorCon. It is a kind of a comic pop culture convention, and I will be there this weekend vending. I'll have Killers the Card Game and all kinds of other assorted things. And I will also have, I'll be speaking at 5 o'clock on Saturday, and we'll be doing Into the Mind of a Killer Live. So we'll break down some different interviews with Dahmer, Bundy, and Kemper. And yeah, we'll talk about them, we'll break them apart, and it'll be a lot of fun. So if you're in the Evansville area, come out and see me, and I will be there ready to rock and roll. All right, we're going to get started here. All right. Wow. We got an old one today. We got a Madame Delphine LaLaurie. Really interesting case. So she was born on March 19th, 1787. A long time ago. She died on December 7th, 1849. She was a New Orleans Creole socialite and serial killer who tortured and murdered slaves in her household. She maintained her position in New Orleans society until April 10th, 1834, when rescuers responded to a fire at her Royal Street mansion. They discovered bound slaves in her attic who showed evidence of cruel, violent abuse over a long period. LaLaurie's house was subsequently sacked by an outraged mob of New Orleans citizens. She escaped to France with her family. However, her house was burned by the mob, and the LaLaurie mansion at 1140 Royal Street was in fact rebuilt after her departure from New Orleans. So the house and mansion is still there. There is still something at the site of 1140 Royal Street, and it is thought to be extremely haunted. It has been owned by several people. Last time I was in New Orleans, it was actually owned by Nicolas Cage. He owned it for a short while. I don't know who owns it now. Excuse me. But it is a fascinating place. Delphine LaLaurie, of course, if you watch, I forget which, I guess it's the witch season of American Horror Story. She's featured in that. Kathy Bates plays her. And, of course, she is, kind of playing kind of the counter to Marie Laveau, who is also depicted in that season of American Horror Story. Probably one of my favorite seasons. I love New Orleans culture and all of the things around Creole food and everything. Actually, when I was in culinary school, because that's what my actual degree is in, I'm a chef by trade, I used to do New Orleans cooking, and I was a huge fan of Emeril Lagasse and all of that stuff. So the first time I went down to New Orleans, I got to take who at that time was my best friend. I got to take him down there, and we got to go to all of the incredible sites. I got to take him to actually 3 of Emeril's restaurants down there, and got to experience all of the voodoo and all the crazy things that go on there in New Orleans. It is a incredible place. And in the middle of all that, early on in New Orleans socialite history, you have this woman that is there who is exceptionally cruel. She is one of the higher ups in the kind of the social status, and not unlike a lot of people during that time, had slaves. And so during that time she has them, but she is different than many of them, right? Because many of them, we know from history, abused their slaves and did all kinds of horrible things. It is a blight on our history here in the United States that we actually did all of that, and that people supported all that. It's a horrible time in our history. But Delphine LaLaurie took it to the extreme. She used that to torture people And, not just to run her household and run her, the enterprises that she had, but she would regularly bind them and torture them, and very, very similar to what was going on with the Blood Countess, right, where she was killing her handmaidens and stuff and torturing them. Delphine LaLaurie was very similar here in the United States doing it. And, there is some stories where when they came in, they found all of these bodies under the floorboards, and they find a trunk. And there is a girl alive still in the trunk, but all of her arms and legs are broken so that she can fit into the trunk. And just horrible, horrible stuff that this woman did to the people that were tending to her property. And, probably one of the worst accounts of abuse during that time and torture. And, of course, when they found it, thankfully, the New Orleans social scene was outraged at the fact that she was doing this. And I don't know that they knew that she was doing it. I know that when they broke in, they were surprised to find all of this stuff. So, because this is a woman who had dinner parties at her house, right? They would come and they would, have these opulent parties. And nobody knew that in the slaves' quarters, there were people chained up there. It's a horrible story. Look into it. It is fascinating. But again, in our own pop culture, Delphine LaLaurie has come out and has been there. Was a figurehead on American Horror Story. Check out that season. It may give you a very, very different opinion of that Kathy Bates character in American Horror Story. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us for another 5-minute murder. Going old school with some Delphine. Great name, by the way. Nobody names their kids Delphine anymore. Like, such an old name, but so cool. Of course, she was not cool at all. She was a piece of shit who was a sadist who got off on torturing innocent people. So she is not cool. The name is really cool. But yeah, there you go. A little Delphine LaLaurie for your Friday morning. Check it out. Go down and visit. If you go on any of the ghost tours down there in New Orleans, you will end up at the LaLaurie Mansion. They will take you in front of it and talk about some of the stories there, about the dinner parties and about the fire that happened, and some of the ghost stories. So it's always fascinating. There is a story of on one of the balconies that there is a ghost, and I believe one of Delphine's children fell off of that balcony or was pushed off of that balcony and died there. So there are reports that you can see a ghostly apparition on the balcony that they believe is the daughter of Delphine who died. There's all kinds of interesting paranormal stories that go along with that mansion. During that time, there was all kinds of, intermingling, and lots of people that were, slave owners that were having children with their slaves. And so you have a lot of that. I don't know how much that factors into that story, but it was, it was rampant in the South. And, of course, it's so funny that one of the things later on that comes out that people have a problem with is interracial marriage. And, Christ, they were doing it for hundreds of years, right? Except they weren't doing it where there was any kind of real connection and love. It was all about, give me what I'm owed. And it's horrible that we have a history like that. And I'm so thankful that we have, come to a better place in our society. And of course, it's not perfect by any means. There is still lots of racism and terrible things that happen in our culture now. But I'm so glad that we have come from, what was, not even 60 years ago in this country. So thankful for that people have more liberty now than they've ever had, even though our society has been crazy the last several years. So anyway, um, come and see me in Evansville. Come and check it out. Go down to New Orleans. Check out the LaLaurie Mansion. Go and check out Marie Laveau's grave too. It's fascinating. Down there, of course, the water table is really high, so they can't bury people in the ground there because they pop out of the ground like fucking zombies. So, and actually, that's one of the origin stories of zombies, right? Comes from that area because of that, and voodoo and everything. But they bury everybody, or I guess not bury everybody. They put everybody in crypts down there, and Marie Laveau has a crypt. She actually has several, because people would go and put offerings on her crypt. They would take pieces of it home, and they had destroyed it. Actually, the one that I went and saw, I believe it's at St. Louis number 1, but it was just so beat up from people going up there and wanting to take pieces of it home, to use in their own rituals and everything. But New Orleans culture is fascinating to me. The voodoo and all of the other things that are comprised in that. It is such a crazy conglomeration of like African and French and like, just backwoods bayou beliefs. It's amazing. I find New Orleans just probably my favorite place on earth. So I look forward to going back there at some point. Maybe this year I'll be able to do a convention in New Orleans. So if any of you are out there watching that have, a horror convention, oddities convention in New Orleans and would like me there, I would love to be there. I've been dying to get back down there. I've been there 3 times, and, I'm not a huge drinker, so like Bourbon Street doesn't do anything for me, but the history, there's so much history, and there's so much dark history down there. That I love going down there and, just getting involved in all that with all the paranormal stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling now. But thank you guys for joining us for another, 12-minute murder today. Mary, you can let me know the official time after this. Go ahead and post it in the comments. And I will talk to you guys soon. See you.
Have you ever wanted to be a detective to investigate the crime scene and catch the criminal? Well, welcome to Death, New Mexico, a town just off the famous Route 666. A pretty quiet town until recently. There have been a string of murders. In the social deduction game, The Profiler, you have 60 minutes to investigate the crime scene, interrogate your witnesses, and determine who the killer is and what kind of killer they are to win. What will happen when you become the Profiler?